Hey folks, this is Aaron with ThruTracker Analytics, and I'm excited to show you this beta version of ThruTracker for you to test out. So when you open up the program, this is the interface that you're going to see. And in this little tutorial, I'm just going to give you a quick walkthrough so you can kind of go through the main features and see them for yourself. So when we open it up, you can just go to the top here and we're going to start a new project. I'm going to call this demo test 2. It's going to ask you for a location, and all of the data is going to be stored in a folder hierarchy in this location. I recommend putting it in a easy to find place. I just made a folder on my C drive in Windows called Data, and I'm keeping all my projects in that folder. So we can put some notes here about the project and then hit OK. It's going to ask me to add videos to the project, and I'm going to do that. So I have a couple of test videos that I've put in my desktop. And for a given project, I recommend organizing this based on a group of videos that are going to be somewhat similar to each other. So if you just have one video, you can select one video. If you have 10, 20, 50 videos that are all pretty similar as far as how they look and whatnot, then you can put it in that project. If you have very different project or different videos, you might want to make multiple projects for those videos, but you can figure that out as you test it. So I'm going to select these two videos. It is going to copy them into the project folder. I'll show you where in a second here. And it's going to keep everything organized in that folder. So now if I want to go and switch between projects, I can hit open project and go between all of these different ones. I'm going to do this new one that I just created. When you create a project, it makes several different folders where all the data, everything for that project is going to be nicely organized for you. So you can hit this open project folder and you can see that I just made this demo test 2 project folder here. And in this project folder are a number of different other folders. The config folder has different configurations for doing different runs. Mostly for now, you don't need to worry about what's in there. You can operate everything from within ThruTracker, but if you get to sort of advanced user settings, you can change this configuration file more directly. There's also output logs. So every time you do a run, it's saving all of that data here in case you need to go back to it and see how you ran that in the past. Videos are stored in this videos folder. So I just copied these two videos here. And then what you'll be using probably most often is going to be in this outputs folder. So when we run a detection, it's going to save all of the detection data, the XY coordinates, all of that in this detections folder. Then we're going to generate overlay videos and images that we can review. And then the track data is going to be saved in tracks. So we'll look at that after we do a test. All right, so we have our new project. We can also add more videos to it. Now that we have that set up, we have 3 different tabs up here: the detection and tracking tab, the post-processing tab, and the tools and apps. So we can select our first video, which is going to be this one here. And before doing the processing, what we need to do is choose our detector settings. And in this particular video, I'm going to set the sensitivity. I know this video, the bats are pretty easy to detect, so I'm going to set the sensitivity to low. There's options from 1 to 7 there for you to check out. There's an option to suppress the background if it's kind of noisy, like you might see in a near-infrared video where the background is kind of crackly. The target diameter is the size of the object in pixels, which I have an app for. I'm going to open up for a second. Then we're going to specify number of bats in the video. This would be just sort of the maximum number of bats you would expect to see at any time in a given frame. In this case, I'm going to leave it at 1 to 5, but there's just a few options here. And then in this video, the bats are brighter, so I'm going to leave that default setting. Now I have a little tool here that we can go to measure the diameter of the bats. It's one of the critical inputs called the Video Zone Drawer app. So I'm going to open that up and select my video that I'm working with. And then I'm just going to go forward until I can find, hopefully you have an idea of where some bats are in the video. You can use another program for this like VLC, Media Player, or Virtual Dub. Okay, so in this case, there's some bats leaving from the rafters here, and you can hit Control. There's some shortcut keys here. It tells you down here, use the Control plus the wheel to zoom in. So I'm going to zoom in on one of the bats here, and then I'm just going to click with my mouse, and it's going to draw a circle around that bat. So I want to draw this circle so that it's pretty much covering the entire diameter of the bat. So I'm going to increase that diameter here to about 25. So that looks pretty good. And you want to pick kind of the size of the bat that's most typical for what you are trying to track. And in this case, because I'm interested in these bats coming off rafters, I'm going to pick it there. Okay. Now I'm gonna zoom back out. The other thing we can do with this app is define a bounding box. So in this case, I'm looking for bats that are leaving the rafters here. So I know because I've looked at this before, roughly where the bats are coming out, but you can always set this initially and change it later on if you want to. So I'm gonna set the upper left corner to be about 12% from the top left. And then the bottom right, I'm going to keep that right side at about 50% into the image. And then the bottom half, I'm going to also set at 50%. So now I've defined my box here. I'm going to be counting bats. You don't have to count a bounding box if you're just looking at different events, but for counting purposes, if you're looking at a roost, I would recommend this approach. Okay, so now I'm going to save my selection. It's going to ask me if I want to confirm those values. I'm going to say yes. Okay, and now we can return to ThruTracker. So if I go back to my detection and tracking page, we can see that it's automatically updated the target diameter to 25 pixels. And then in the post-processing tab, it's also kept that we do want to do an exit count here. We have that checked, and it's kept the positions of that bounding box for us. Now there's two options. We can count every time a bat crosses into and out of the box, or we can count the number of tracks that are starting inside the box. So I'm going to do that for this particular one. There's a lot more going on here. You can hit this info button to get all the different options for the post-processing, but for our purposes, I'm gonna add a tracks only video, which I'll show you what that is, and otherwise keep this all the same. So now I can just go back here and we're ready to do our first processing. So I'm going to do a test run here and just process the first 500 frames. We can see this video is 3,500 and some frames. I'm going to test it to make sure I have the settings dialed in before running it over the whole video. So I'm just going to hit test run here, and that 500 frames, 30 frames per second. So that's about what, 17 seconds or so. And you can see how quickly this is going to run. And this is running faster than real time, especially when we get this dialed up at running over larger videos. So it's done a whole bunch of outputs here. This is really just for troubleshooting. If there's any issues, you can look at that output or ignore it. You can see the main thing here is that we generated 14 counts, and now we want to go and verify if that was actually working correctly. So the first thing I usually do is now look at the review videos that were generated based on the options I selected in post-processing. So we can open the overlay folder, and this is just opening that output folder that I showed you earlier under outputs, overlay videos. And it's generated two videos for me, the gate count video and the tracks only video. So the gate count video is going to show the video of the entire part that was processed. And we've overlaid our box here, and then it's going to show the tracking and the counting. So we can see in a second here, should have some bats coming out. Okay, we got 6 bats that came out. It's showing an overlay. So I'm using Virtual Dub 2, which is a very useful program because you can go frame by frame and see the tracking. And each time it's drawing that circle, it's generating a count for a track starting inside the box in this case. And so we have 6 bats that are coming out at first. Tracking is working quite well. It's drawing boxes over the targets that it's detecting. And the colors are just for keeping track of different tracks. They don't necessarily mean anything other than a color is assigned to each track. So if you see a color switch, that would mean that a new track was started. And so we can see some bats are flying around, circling inside here, and we got a count of 14. Looked like it was working correctly there. So that is one of the outputs. The tracks only output is nice because now it's generating the tracks, it's adding an ID number to each one, and it's only making a video using the time periods where a track is present. So if you have a long video where there's not much going on, this is really nice because it trims down, could be an hour-long video, and there's only a few events, and you can see exactly what was tracked. Okay. So in addition to our outputs, we also makes a tracking figure for you. And so we can open up this image in our figures output. And this shows a nice little overview of the tracks that it counted over time. So there were 6 bats that came out about 7 seconds into the video, another 4 here, and then another 4 there. So that's available to you whenever you do a gate count. In addition, the actual detections are saved in a CSV file. Most of the time you don't need that, but in case you did, for any other reason that is there. And then also a track summary is generated here as a CSV file. So there were actually 41 tracks that were generated. We can see the 14 were already categorized as exits. And then there's other track data here you can check out. Okay, so a couple other review features that I've added into ThruTracker are available now that we have generated some data. So we can go to Tools and Apps. I'm going to generate some review images, which I'll show you. So we just select, we only have one option here that we've processed so far. I'm going to select that, and I'm going to just process the first 10 tracks and generate review images that we can take a look at. Hit OK. That's going to take a few seconds to generate. And then once that's done, we can launch the track review app. I'm not going to open the folder, but the review images were generated successfully. So just got to wait a little bit while that's processing. All right. So I'm going to launch the track review app, and this lets us quickly inspect the tracks and categorize them, add comments, etc. So the first option is to open the track plots, and I'm going to select that track data CSV that we just generated. It all knows where everything is, so you don't really need to keep track of anything except for which video you are working with. All right, now this is populated 41 tracks that we just looked at, and some of these have already automatically been categorized. I have 1 as an exit, 2 as an entry, 3 as a flyby. You can actually change these categories here. You can also categorize them if you're just looking for certain behaviors as good, bad, or uncertain. You can also star particular events if you want to go back and find those. And these all have shortcut keys. There's information down here on which keyboard keys to use for the shortcuts. So we can just go through here and use our arrow keys to go through track by track. And these were all categorized correctly as exits. This one was not. That was a flyby that wasn't categorized, so I can call that a flyby. And you can do this one by one if you want. Or you can look at all of the tracks simultaneously. We can go up here, view all tracks, and then we can select them by drawing a box around them, either by any point on the track or by its start or end point. So I'm going to select based on the start point, hit OK, and now it's showing me all 41 tracks that we have looked at, and I'm going to select all the tracks over here where the bats were flying around circling. The ones in red were the ones that we already counted as exits. Those look good. But I'm gonna just draw a box over here, and we've got 27 tracks selected. And I'm gonna categorize this as 3 flybys, and we can make a comment that's flying around the barn. Fly classification, and that has been updated. So now down here, we can see a little summary, the categories. Category 1 has 14 tracks. We had 14 exits. And Category 3 flybys have 27 tracks. Mostly in this case, I'm interested in Category 1, but we have all that data available to us. Now we can also look at the track images that we generated earlier. So I'm going to select that folder, first one. And what this does is it attempts to do an outline of the individual track and the detection itself. And then it takes little snapshots of those tracks so you can see it kind of blown up. And this is something that is a bit still in development, trying to optimize that track detection feature. But this is really helpful if you have small detections or you want to kind of see if that was like a bat or an insect. And this is another way of visualizing and categorizing the tracks. So again, we can just go through here and look at some of these and use that to help categorize. Okay, so this saves everything for us, but if we want to be extra sure, we can hit save up here and close this and say yes. Okay, it shows you where that track data was all saved to in case you forgot. And now if we want to go back and see that data, we can go back and open our project folder and remember that it's in outputs, tracks, track data. And we can see that we have all this data nicely categorized for us. We can summarize this using whatever tools we want. We have a time course, and if we want to process that, all that data is available for you. Okay, so that's the core functionality. Now, what I would probably do next is we can run an entire video. Since we've dialed in the settings, we can also do a batch run and do all of the videos at a time. This uses parallel processing to speed up and efficiency. We can do that quite quickly. We can go back, add more projects, more videos. The only other feature that I have in here to show off is if we've done a detection and tracking run and we want to reprocess the post-processing, like the gate count, for example, or we want to generate some outputs that we didn't generate the first time, you can go here in the post-processing tab and then change what we want to do. Say we want to do a boundary cross. Instead of having to process the entire video from scratch, we can just go in here and post-process the selected video, and that will be a lot faster. Okay, that's it for this stage of the demo. And if you have any questions, please let me know. I'd love it if you could check out these features. Let me know at this point, kind of if these base features are working, if you see any things that need to be tweaked or fixed. Down the road, I'll be looking for sort of feature requests, but at this point, mostly want to test this base functionality, make sure it all makes sense and is working properly. All right. Thanks, everybody.